When that went through, were there any stewards who said, "Oh no," and they quit?
Well, on balance, I'd say very, very few. There were a lot of them that complained and threatened to quit, but when it came down to the nitty gritty, no, they didn't quit. Uh, on balance, over the years, and I've worked, I know all of them, but stewards personally, and people I work with, and there was no. They recognized that that was really a responsibility that went with the job, and so it went over okay. We did sweeten it somewhere down the road, and this was later. It wasn't at that time, but they allowed a $10 expense allowance to the steward for attending the meeting, and that came in later. But I think that's still in effect or something of that nature.
Yeah, it is. Now, when you were elected to district council, were you still president? You held both offices?
Yeah, I was a local lodge president and a district council delegate, which was common. I mean, most of all the local lodge presidents were on the council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now it's automatic.
Is it automatic?
Local F, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. But I know at that time you had to be elected, but obviously if you could get elected president, you could be elected. Mm-hmm. We had 9 delegates, so one of the 9 you would be. Yeah. I used to finish second or third. For some reason, I'd run for president and get elected, and I'd be second or third for district council out of 9. So. But whatever.
So did Gene run for district council that year too, or?
I am not sure whether he did or not. He may not have been on the council. Jerry Dargis, who was active in the union for many years, was on the council. And there's a number of others. I can't remember all the names, but a lot of the people that were active did run for other union office later. Mm-hmm. I was also, this is early on, involved when I first was elected in '63. I was involved in this contract negotiations and all the unrest that went on. In 1963, I was not yet president, and we had a series of negotiations with the company over issues. One was the rating system, which they called the company rated employees. So we didn't have a seniority. They were required to rate 20% of the employees as below average and 20% above average, and then the rest would be average. And they had a 1 or 2% could be, really bad, and 1 or 2% could be excellent, ready for promotion. But the hardest part was, and I talked to supervisors at the time, and they told me that they had to go into a smoothly running shop every 6 months and tell 20% of the people that they were below average. And every time you could see the chart of the morale and production go down. So even from the company standpoint, that was a stupid system. And the one thing about seniority, and we hear a lot about it today, it is impartial. There's no partiality. You know where you stand, and you don't have to blame anybody. And if you stick around long enough like me, you get seniority. But anyway, I was saying, in the '63 negotiations, the company refused to meet our demands. So instead of going on strike, we voted to strike. The leadership of the union at that time decided to extend the contract 30 days and continue negotiations, which they did. At the end of the 30 days, there was still no movement. We voted again to strike. So then the government came in with a Taft-Hartley 80-day cooling off period. So at the end of that, where they were supposed to negotiate, I guess they did, still no movement. So then they had another 30-day extension, and by this time the workers were really angry. And the company then came with their offer, and they said they would give us a, I don't know the amount, 10, 15 cent raise, retroactive back to when they first started. So that would be a lump sum of, I don't know, at that time, $200, $300, a fairly substantial lump sum, if we would accept their lousy, no good contract, which we did. But with a great deal of yelling and screaming and reluctance and angry feeling. And that's when I ran for president. So in '65, I went through the same routine, except I was then one of the 4 local presidents, and we sat down in the office with district officers, including Johnny Sullivan, and we said, we're in the shop. We know what the members want. They want to strike. So we're going to strike. And Sullivan was the district president, was not a bad guy. I kind of liked him, but he had been in the 1948 strike, which the union lost big time. And Johnny Sullivan was afraid, that if we went on strike and company is adamant we might lose, if people would cross the picket line, we'd be back to square one, and maybe we could renegotiate. And we were adamant. He said, no, we're going to strike. So we stayed in the office till midnight, and the contract expired. And of course, there was really very little preparation. So I have to give credit to Jerry Dargis. He got table bare, put a map out there with charts. You go to this gate, you go to that gate, you go to this gate, make picket signs, you bring coffee. And we were out 19 days. And the strike, we had 80% membership. 95% of the people went out on strike. So a lot of non-members went out. And very few crossed the picket line. Anyway, the bottom line is Sullivan died. Our vice president, Charlie Strentz, had not been involved in the negotiation. So the International from Washington, D.C. sent Charlie West out here to help. So Charlie West gets out here and he meets with Charlie Strentz, our vice president, and they went into the company together to cobble together an agreement based on what the pickets on the picket line were waving their signs and yelling. And by golly, we got the removal of the rating system. And there were some exceptions. I mean, they had a, what do they call it, where they could pick a few people out. And they said, well, we get the shop stewards super seniority, so they get to pick some super. We said, okay. But basically, we got the seniority. And then we negotiated coverage for health care coverage for dependents, which was a big item for me. I had 4 small children at home. And so that was a real victory. And the second day of the strike, the first day of the strike, first 3 days actually, I was in the hall with our committee, ad hoc committee, around the clock. And we were there for 3 days and nights, drinking coffee, having a sandwich, dispatching people. And so I finally got home the 3rd day, and I just got in the door, and the phone rang, and it said our district president, Johnny Sullivan, had a heart attack. So I get in the car and back down there again to the hall, and everybody was kind of wondering what to do. And he lingered for about a day or 2, and then he died. So in retrospect, actually the pressure and all, we killed him in a way. But that's when the Grand Lodge sent Charlie West out to meet with our vice president and go in and negotiate with the company. And after we won, it was a whole different attitude between the company and the union. And when we said we were going to strike, they had to give some credence to that.
Got a little respect, huh?
Yeah. And we did build on the contract. Now, I don't know the exact dates, but we got what they call a retention of membership clause. And then we got you have to actively opt out, otherwise you're automatically a member type thing over the years. And then we finally got a union shop, which we have today.